So what does it take to build and nurture a consistent and continuous learning environment in 2021? To find out, we have assembled a brilliant selection of experts to share their thoughts. They are from Vonage, Dan Reinbold, from Teamworks, Larry Long Jr., and from STANLEY Security, Jack Snodgrass. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Welcome to the summit.
Morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, great to have you guys with us this morning. Many thanks for offering to share your thoughts and walk us through this topic. A fascinating topic, and one that was touched quite heavily there in the last session there, this idea of training, actually, and actually that being the key part to get right. One of the biggest threats, but also one of the biggest opportunities. 77%, as Kelly said, of salespeople perhaps underperforming. There is huge scope to get that figure higher. So let's maybe kick off with a question that kind of maybe touches on some of the things that Kelly spoke about earlier, but also addresses this idea of kind of training. We've all seen this acceleration towards digital selling practices over the course of the past 12 months. So how do you implement better training and coaching to optimize those virtual selling practices in a workplace that's already gone virtual? We'll go around the group, we'll get some thoughts, and then, feel free to add your thoughts as we go. Larry, let's maybe come to you first with that one if we can.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I love the bat lead off. I played baseball in college, so let's roll. I'm a big believer that with the digital transformation, with that transition, it provides an opportunity for us to really up-level our skills. We're talking about nurturing an environment for growth and learning, and this is just an excellent opportunity. And for us, we've been practicing. I mean, I work with a bunch of athletes, so we go through the reps. I don't know if Allen Iverson is in the crowd, but yes, Allen, we're talking about practice, not the game. You can't be ready for the game if you don't get those reps in. So we're using Zoom. We go through and we actually practice. We record it and we review the game tape, Monday morning quarterback, to make sure that we're engaging. And I think I heard the gentleman before talking about, listen. So many times we were lacking in our discipline to ask the right questions and then shut up and listen and learn so that we can serve our prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a real skill, I guess, adapting to this new way of working. It requires practice. It requires input from the management, I suppose, from the trainers.
It starts at the top. So as a sales leader, it really starts with me setting the stage, setting the environment, setting the expectations that, hey, this hasn't changed. Us keeping that customer, that prospect centricity. They've got to remain at the center of what we do. And that is really demonstrated by our actions. It's, hey, how are you running the sales process? How are you leveraging the Zooms? How are you getting, and for us, it's athletic departments, how are you getting them engaged in the conversation and discussion so that it's not just one way? And essentially the best way is to take the mic out of your hand, pry it out of your hand, give it to the prospects, because we know the more that your prospects are talking, the more you're learning and the more you're able to really figure out how you can fit and match those needs that they have.
Yeah, good stuff, Larry. I'm interested to know how many other props you've got littered around that desk to sprinkle in throughout the course of the next 40 minutes. Let's maybe come to you next. Dan, if we can, get some thoughts from you.
Yeah, look, following Larry, I mean, come on. The enthusiasm is contagious, but I couldn't agree more with getting your reps in. Now, whether that's in a virtual environment or the physical environment, it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, I think it becomes even more integral in the virtual environment because we're missing the physical nuances that I love when I'm out on a customer appointment, spending time in the field with salespeople to base our training more in reality. So missing that element, we have to have, going back to something that Kelly mentioned, was that emotional intelligence that can be learned and it can be developed. And so as we put together and immediately had to pivot, as everyone did, to the virtual environment, that level of engagement, I call them tactics. I'm big on tactics. What can we label a tactic? Because if I can label a tactic for you, then it enhances your ability to maybe remember it from the training. So, we've all heard about open-ended questions, and every salesperson you talk to be like, yeah. I ask open-ended questions. I'm great at that. Then you listen to the game tape, like Larry said, and you're like, nah, you're not there. And then logical sequence. Do you follow up with the next best logical question based on what the prospect said, not what you want to ask? And so my team and I have started listening to game tapes, recorded calls, and then we call them debriefs, right? Or as Larry alluded to, I love listening, watching the game tape, just like on Monday mornings in the NFL. So once we do that, we literally will pause and dissect it with the rep and say, look, when they said this, when they moved their chest piece here, you could have moved here and you missed it. So I think in that virtual environment, if you're looking for positive things that have come out of the pandemic, one of the things is the emphasis that needs to be put, and we're starting to put, on really breaking down game tape and not going, because it's so easy now with the technology. We could just record, right? Whereas before, a little more difficult, we're all out on the physical appointment. You're not going to be in there, recording on your phone. It's more uncomfortable. So the technology has given us an opportunity to actually record those things and give us more game tape to review. And I think that has been a significant benefit coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's so true. Just as it is in sports, you've got so much data, so much an analysis going on around the game, so many camera angles, so much stats. It's been a real game changer in terms of analysis, and I guess that can be implemented in certainly in this instance. Jack, let's maybe come to you, get some thoughts from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's not a lot more to add there. I agree that the technology has given us the ability to do the coaching. The data that we're now collecting provides the insights, and so if you combine the insights that we're getting from the data and the technologies that we have, we can do the game tape reviews, right? And I'm in sales operations, so my role is to provide the resources to the sales organization that they need to be able to do their jobs. And so we're always vetting technology and looking more at the data. And we had to redo our onboarding playbooks. We have to reinforce the training more. We have to communicate what the new desired behaviors are going to be. We use Transformation Tuesdays or Transformation and Training Tuesdays to do that. And so it's all of that combined has really helped. So just like Dan was saying, I mean, if you're looking for positives coming out of COVID, it has really allowed the technology and the new and all the data that we're getting has allowed us to be better coaches of our sales org.
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to something that came up in the earlier session. It's about using technology in that focused way. It's not so much about over-reliance, but using it well and using it effectively. I love this idea of reps and repetition. I think it really speaks to the heart of this panel session topic, continuous learning, etc. But I'm kind of interested to know, as with anything, if you don't keep on using the muscles, they atrophy. So you need to do the reps, but how do you keep it fresh? How do you kind of keep that continuous learning process fresh and up to date and make sure that people are still engaged with it? Dan, let's maybe start with you.
Well, look, I think it comes down to, I spent the bulk of my career starting as a salesman and then fortunately moving up the progression to sales leadership and senior sales leadership. So I have this tremendous empathy for salespeople living under a quota. But to answer your question, I think it comes down to keeping the competitiveness alive. Larry said he played baseball. As a former athlete myself, that competitive drive is still in me. And so I think that you find ways virtually to keep that competitiveness. I'll give you an example. So when I run a sales training, we want everyone on camera. We want to be able to see them. And I have one of my trainers with me, and they're designated as the point keeper, and we set up a game. And you answer a question, you proactively come up with a great answer or a great question, you get points. And so we run these little mini competitive sessions consistently. And then, of course, that has to feed into the global competitiveness that, to me, every sales organization should be publishing their stack rankings and doing all those sales operational basics. But in addition to that, that setting up mini games every single time that you're on a call, I think is critical to not only keeping it fun, and then we hand out rewards, we give some prizes. So it's just one of those little things that in a virtual environment and or a physical environment can make it a lot more fun to try to be engaged in the learning process.
Yeah, gamification. Larry, let's come to you.
Yeah, I love what Dan said about gamification. I'm going to say, and he talked about empathy. As a leader, you've got to show your folks that you care. And especially in today's environment where I don't care if you're a newborn or if you're 100 years old, this pandemic, this situation has had an impact. So I focus on MBS, mind, body, and soul, making sure that my reps are in that right mindset personally so they can bring their best self professionally. Now, after we show that we care, there's another C called communication. And when we were in the office, we were able to communicate. You hop off of a call, you come out, you're able to kind of break down how the call went, what you learned, what you would do differently, kind of chop it up with your colleagues. We don't have that today. So for us, every Monday and every Friday, we use that as an opportunity to share with our colleagues, with other reps. What are we learning? What are we hearing? What are we thinking? Just so that we get that cross-pollination of some trends, as well as just some areas that we can, I sell sports to athletic teams. We game plan, and pardon all the sports analogies, but that's the world that I live in. Our playbook and the plays that we're running has changed tremendously, and it continues to change. And we've just fostered an environment where it's, hey, each one, we're all together, same team, let's rock and roll, let's win together.
Oh, Larry, what's working for you when you're doing this remotely then? Obviously when you're in the office together, it's easy to kind of engender that team spirit, to look in people's eyes and see how they are feeling, mind, body and spirit. When people are remote, that's harder to do. How are you tackling it?
You got to get creative. Come on now. We can all put on our thinking cap. You've really got to, it's morphed and it continues to change. But essentially, just like right now, we're talking on Zoom. If you're looking down, you're on your phone, you're not engaged. Let's go. Let's make sure everyone is engaged and everyone is really, we're rowing in the same direction. We all want to win and we want to win together. It's really about being present. And it starts with the leader of setting that expectation, but also modeling what that looks like. I'm a big believer of taking notes. I got notebooks everywhere, and my expectation is that my team is the same. That we're not just taking notes, but we're putting that into action, because I can have all the knowledge in the world, but if I don't put that into action and do what I know I'm supposed to do, and if I don't have someone that's holding me accountable, someone who's giving me that little pat, that encouragement on the back, but also saying, hey, let's step our game up, I'm flying in the wind. And I don't know about you, I don't like to fly in the wind. I like to have a plan of attack so that I give myself the best chance at success.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same, Larry. Let's maybe bring you in, Jack, as well. Get some thoughts. So how are you supporting the organisation, the sales organisation, as they're looking to tackle some of these challenges that Larry and Dan have talked about?
Yeah, they mentioned it, the gamification. I'm the one that's bringing the gamification to the meetings, right? I'm again in sales ops. I'm holding them accountable, right? And we are making sure that we're keeping people engaged. The right word is engaged there. And using again the data to show that. And I'm also we should have been doing it before, but we also are collaborating more across the functions within the business, right? I'm getting voice of customers, not only from our customer and what they're expecting, but also from the marketing team and from leadership and operations, and kind of bringing all those functions to the meetings when we're having our transformation or training Tuesdays at least once a month. I've got functional leadership coming not only from senior leaders, but from marketing, from operations, like I said. And so and they're providing feedback on kind of what their expectations of the sales organization is. So it's helping them, learn from the other leaders in the organization.
Yeah, great, thanks. I guess kind of one of the most valuable things about working in an office is the opportunity it affords for random moments of interaction, those water cooler moments, bumping into people, bumping into people that you wouldn't necessarily do on a day-to-day basis, different job roles, different functions, different teams, etc. So how are you encouraging and improving that kind of cross-functional collaboration that Jack just talked about there, and learning in these work-from-home environments? Jack, we'll maybe start with you.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I just said, I mean, we're taking every opportunity we can to have more integrated approach to our business, right? And then collaborating across the functions. So we have to be creative, like Larry said. I mean, in the beginning, it was almost easier. Everybody was kind of, good with getting on, virtual happy hours and talking and collaborating. And now it's kind of after a period, it's gotten old. And so again, we've had to be just more creative, right? So we've implemented transformation and training Tuesdays. We're trying to be creative about how we're doing it, right? And using different technologies. It was just Zoom, now it's Teams, and now we've got some whiteboarding sessions and technologies that we're using there. So just again, trying to be creative.
Yeah, just keeping it fresh. How about yourself, Larry? How are you kind of approaching this? Exposing people to different areas of the business, not just the sales teams, but other functions.
Yeah, I love it. I love what Jack said. We have a get to know your colleagues challenge. And it really is designed, it's for our newcomers, but we focus on it from a continuing education. Essentially, it's a contest of how many of your colleagues can you get to know, can you introduce yourself to, as well as gather information from them. When we look at our quarterly reviews, we're measuring, I'm going to call it the 5-tool sales professional. Company, what's your understanding of the company, and are you stepping your game up? That's the who, what, when, where, why, and how. The industry, and for us, we serve multiple industries. We're in college athletics, we're in elite athletics, we're also in SaaS. Product, you got to step your product game up. Tools and resources, that's both internal tools, your sales force, but also the relationships, the people that you know internally as well as externally. And then number 5 is sales skills. Are you stepping your game up, your knowledge game, but more importantly, your action game? So that's what we measure. And we do a self-evaluation on a scale of 1 to 10. Where do you think you were this past quarter? Give specific examples. And then as your leader, here goes what I observed. Now, as we move forward to the next quarter, what can you do? And how can I support you with taking your game to that next level?
Yeah. Dan, let's get some thoughts from you on this one. How are you kind of, I guess, kind of taking it to that next level, as Larry said?
Hey, look, part of the reason I agreed to do this was because I figured I would come away with some good tips and learn something, which I try to learn something new all the time. So fortunately, I could take notes almost as fast as Larry speaks. So I got those 5 things, and I'm going to try to bring that to our company and implement that. I'm telling you right now, some of the things, of course, that Jack said as well. And so I think that one of the most important things that we have to do is do a better job at reaching across these different departments. What I did is I started an initiative where I said, think globally, because we're a global company. And, we are heavy in the US, and we have a tendency to have the US time zone bias. And so I really tried to foster in my team this theme. As these guys probably do, we come up with themes kind of for the year. And one of our themes is think globally. So that I'm trying to remind my team to think globally and reach across those other departments. But I will confess, we have to do a better job. We have to do a better job. Hey, look, I was the guy that was always like, hey, let's go to their office. Hey, where's that department? All right, let's go there. And I have to say, I really miss that ability. So now it's like you have to do the same thing virtually. We have to go to their office. Well, now we kind of need an appointment because everybody's calendar's jammed. So we need to do a better job, but it starts with being mindful that we have to do that and thinking globally and then implementing some of these things. And I love the 5 points that Larry threw out there. So I'm going to steal those, Larry. Thank you, my man.
That's what these sessions are for. Yeah,
I think
Jeff.
that's important to. I think it's important to think globally. I mean, we say sort of think locally, but leverage globally is kind of the same we use. I mean, thinking locally is because we have to operate locally to probably optimize our performance, but at the end of the day, we have to leverage our our resources globally, right? And so that's and we're always trying to be mindful of having a unified global team. And again, that is important, Dan.
I want to address this idea of burnout. We've heard it already. We heard it yesterday. We're all familiar with the concept of Zoom fatigue, I am sure. So how do you ensure that these training and learning opportunities don't become just another task to be completed by already stressed out workforces or employees? How do we guard against that? Dan, I'll come to you first.
Wow. Look, I don't want to wax too philosophical here, but to me personally, and what I encourage my team to do, and I share these thoughts with my team, is how, and for example, for me, I'm always turning to a book. What book can I read that keeps me interested, keeps my mind going? So, we talk about stress, we talk about fatigue. It really comes down to, I'm a big proponent of, look, you personally have to take care of yourself. So you have to stay in shape, you have to exercise. That has to be part of your routine. And so we talk about that as a team. I'm constantly asking my folks, I'll talk to one of my folks, Eric, hey, tell me about your diet. I'm trying to learn different things. Gets him talking about it, but it brings it top of mind that we all have to keep engaged in our personal activities to reduce that, not only Zoom fatigue, but fatigue in general, because now that we're tethered at home, many people find themselves working longer hours than they ever did before. Where they could relax on their commute and maybe listen to a podcast or something. Now that's been taken away. Now there's counterbalance with lack of stress in traffic, maybe. But look, it's definitely something that we have to attack on a personal basis. So I share books about how you keep yourself happy, how you keep your mind fresh, and how you keep yourself physically engaged and making sure you're taking care of yourself. So body and mind. So, for us, I'll sum it up by saying it's an open, candid discussions about the things we do and don't.
Yeah, it's a bigger discussion than just thinking about it in a training and learning capacity. This is actually about the employee well-being aspect. Larry, just some quick thoughts from you, and then I think we're going to go to some audience questions.
I agree with Dan. Mind, body, and soul. It's about care, showing care. I'll give the listeners a real quick tip. I call it the hashtag 3-minute challenge. It's not the mannequin challenge, the hashtag 3-minute challenge. Every day, pick one of one of the people that you lead or someone in your organization and take 3 minutes to surprise and delight them. How can you do that? We have so many social channels, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Find something that will probably bring a smile to their face and just send them an email, send them an audio, send them a video, send them something that will surprise and delight them. And I can see the smiles out there. You're already thinking the gears are turning because we're in this people to people business. I don't care if you're B2B, B2C, we're all P2P and we're dealing with people. And people want to feel meaningful. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like you know them, that you like them, that you trust them. That's just one way. Hashtag 3-minute challenge.
Yeah, love it, Larry. And I guess that goes for customers just as much as it does your own team as well. So some great lessons. So how are you using data and analytics to help identify potential areas for improvement? Larry, I'll come to you.
Yeah, so our leadership is a big fan of Insight Squared, and they're digging into win rates, time to close, looking at the stages that we lose deals. Right now, there's an area of opportunity area. We've got deals that are later stage and negotiate that we're losing at a higher rate than before. And we all recognize the current climate and environment, but we're trying to dig in deeper, really investigate to understand what's going on. Are we not asking the right questions up front? And what we're hearing early on is that things are changing in athletic departments, at least for us. There's more scrutiny. The CFOs, the board of regents, they're digging into each and every purchase with more scrutiny than before. So we're trying to figure out what play do we need to run with that information. But data, I mean, I'm in sports. You keep score, you look at stats. I've got a former teammate of mine who used to be a scout for the Red Sox. He said the geeks are taking over. Instead of relying on gut and the eye test, they're now looking at the stats. And it's the same thing in sales and in business. There's such a great story that can be told, but what are you going to do with that story is the question. And that's what we're working on internally is what do we do based on the data?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I'll just come to you very quickly, Dan, if we can, before we look to wrap up here today. How are you kind of tying that data piece to this idea of continuous learning? How are you kind of marrying the two?
Yeah, look, like I said, I have extensive background in sales and sales leadership, and I can tell you that as a salesman, your mind opens up when you're not doing well. That's when they start reaching out to you. But it's also trying to get the performers to go another 5%, another 10%. So one of the things that we are trying to do is we'll look at specific areas. So let's say somebody's pipeline development is down. So their funnel's down. Well, hey, maybe that means they were closing all their deals and they're busy with activity, so they weren't prospecting, which is a typical issue. That's why sales becomes a little more cyclical. So we look at that particular swipe and say pipeline development's down. Let's run a prospecting class for that person or that group. So we'll actually create these smaller cohorts that tie back to what Larry said is, okay, you have a pipe problem. What are you doing about it? You have a closing percentage problem. What are we doing about it? We're losing deals or we're selling on lower margin. You got a negotiating problem. You know, these can all come back to tactical fixes that need to be put in place upstream. You know, where you start thinking about your negotiating processes in your first appointment. And what are you doing to mitigate the objections you're going to get later downstream? So using that data and then tying it to a particular training that tries to address that particular behavior.
Yeah, great stuff. Many thanks to Dan, to Jack, and to Larry for sharing your thoughts here this morning. Much appreciated, gentlemen. Great chatting with you.
Thank you
so much.
You take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.